All right, still coming to you from my pantry, the source of all things good. I've noticed I'm sponsored by Cheerios now. It's awesome. I love it. That's a joke. I'm not. They just ended up right there. All right, so we're going to learn about semantic HTML. And semantic HTML is the tags have meaning. We've already kind of established that. And you can see that right here again, right? And we want to use semantic tags as much as possible. So we already took a look at Reddit, and shockingly, Reddit has eschewed semantic tags. And maybe that's just because they're already successful, whatever, they don't need to worry about it. Or maybe it's because it's built by people who built sites before HTML5 came on board, and we had all these semantic tags because Reddit was like a mid-2000, 2006, 2008 phenomena. And HTML5 is 2010, really started to hit, maybe 11, 12. All right, but here you can see they have header, but it's not a tag, it's just a div. And they don't have any footer on here. And so I already searched this page. I did a right click and view page source, and then a command F, and I searched for a header, and just kind of looked at, like, do they even have a header tag? And I looked at footer. Do they even have a footer tag? And I looked at article, right? Do they even have an article tag? And so, it really would make sense to use the article tag, but they're not, Do they have a section tag? So anyhow, you could go through and you could do this, but it's kind of surprising that some people aren't using the, HTML5 semantic tags. But this is the best practices. This is what the documentation recommends. This is what will help you get a higher page rank because search engines will say, okay, this site was built well, and so your code is a reflection of the quality of the site. If the code is quality, it's more likely the content will be quality. You took time, you knew what you were doing with the code. It's more likely there's a correlation that, if that's the truth, then you're going to have quality with the content too. You've actually put effort into doing things the right way. And search engines want to deliver good results to their customers so that they keep searching in that website, at that search engine, and so they will, be more likely to serve your page. That's the end of the story. So we're just getting a feel for this, and these are some of the HTML elements, semantic elements, which we can use to create sections, different areas in our document. So sections in the document, okay? And some of these sections won't translate to the outline that we're creating. So there's like a header section, and a side section, a footer section, a section that creates a section, and an article. Article and section are pretty similar. We'll differentiate them in just a second. Here's another example. Header, nav, section, article, footer, aside. Another example. And you might just pause the video, or you have access to this document, so go look at the document and just sort of meditate on these for a minute and just sort of take them in. Header, nav, section, article, article. This section has articles in it. Aside, footer. So what would be an example of this? We'll get to that in a second. We'll do this first, and then we'll talk about the difference between article and section. Header, footer, nav. This nav has a header. This article has a header and a footer and two sections. That's interesting. So this section had two articles, and this article has two sections. Huh. And then we have an aside, and this aside has a couple of sections in it. Wow, that's kind of fascinating. That's cool. All right. So those are some examples of using, and pretty straightforward, using some of these semantic HTML elements to mark things up. We will see that in practice, figuring out which tag to use where can be a little bit more challenging. So there are some nuances to which one we use where. But really, it's this basic. And if you just have a basic site, perfect. This is what it looks like, right? And there's variations on how you could do this. So maybe put the nav inside the header, right? So you could have a header, and inside the header, the nav's in there. I don't know if there's an example. Header, nav. There's not an example of that. But that's something that is acceptable and that people do. All right, so what's the difference between a section and an article? We'll just get a little bit of detail about these. And so you could think about, you kind of think about like section and articles. I think about the newspaper, right? So the newspaper has different sections, and there's like the world section, the local section, the business section, the sports section. So you have these different sections, and each section has a bunch of articles. So sections can have articles. Likewise, as you're looking at like maybe an article in the world section, right? Maybe there's an article, you go to the world section, there's an article, a bunch of articles there. You choose one article about Africa. And in that article could have different sections, right? So the article could have a section of the article which is about, economic development. It could also have another section in the article which is about regional conflict. So just like we saw up here, an article can have sections, right? And we also saw that a section can have articles. And so that's how you use them interchangeably. Well, what's the point of having two different ones? An article can stand on its own. So you could take an article out of the context, the web page it's on, and you could put it anywhere and it will make sense. A section, on the other hand, isn't something that stands on its own. So you couldn't take it out. Like if you took it and put it somewhere else, it might not make sense. So if I took that, like for that article on Africa, right, with the different sections, if I took one of the little sections out of there on economic development in the whole article, well, there's going to be talking about other parts of the article, and that one little couple of paragraphs out of an entire article that are talking just about that one thing, they don't stand on their own so well. They really need the whole article, and that whole article can stand on its own. So hopefully that makes sense. But articles stand on their own, and sections don't. So articles kind of developed to help syndicate content or content that's going to be shared from one place to another. If it's in an article, okay, that could be easily grabbed and put somewhere else because it can stand on its own. So here's where I talk about that, right? So those are those two. And I have an example here, O24 structure, and I haven't looked at this in a couple of days, so I'm not quite sure what it is, but let's pop it open and just take a look. And now that I see it, I'm liking it. And so here's welcome on our website. Welcome to our website. Welcome to our website. And then what's the outline look like on that? That's pretty cool. That's a lot like the one we saw before with Anthony Bourdain stuff. But the difference here, what's the difference? So here's the outline. We have H2, we have a header for the Anthony Bourdain. We have a footer, we have nav in the footer down there. And here we have header, we have a nav, and we have a header in it. And that's kind of interesting, header in the nav. And then we have article and article header, section, footer, right? So this article has two sections. And so just an example, and then we have an aside with three sections. And this is, I believe, this is from Hong Kiat. And Hong Kiat was this one right here. So that's actually the code for creating this right there. So you can look at that code and kind of see how does this translate to code. And one of the things you have to learn to do is, like this, has the layout involved in it. This is just like straight up and down code. And we could position these things in different places if we wanted. And we'll do that with CSS when we do layout. Remember, first thing, section up all of our content, section up the document. Next thing, create the outline. Next thing, do the layout. All right. So that's the beginning. And in the next exercise, in the next video, I'm going to give you an exercise to just generally, without precision, just starting to work with these tags. We're going to take a couple of web pages and start marking them up and figuring out what would go in what section. So we're going to do that in the next video.